Years from now, people will still recount the day Barack Obama walked into Donald Trump's Oval Office and left him utterly speechless. That morning, the air within the White House felt different, heavy, still, and charged. It wasn't the kind of silence that brings peace. It was the kind that tightens your chest. Security guards seemed to stand a little taller. Staff whispered cautiously in the corners. In every echoing step down the marble halls carried a silent message. Something monumental was about to unfold. Inside the Oval Office, the president's chair was positioned toward the window, sunlight gleaming across its polished surface. Donald Trump sat there, hands clasped, eyes fixed intently on the door. He had summoned this meeting himself. On paper, its purpose was a discussion of national importance, a serious conversation about policy, direction, and unity. But everyone knew that wasn't the whole truth. Deeper shadow hung over this meeting cast by the man about to enter, Barack Obama. This was the same individual who years prior had publicly disarmed Trump with nothing more than a few well-placed jokes and an unshakable smile. Now Trump held the power, the title, and the room. For a man like him, that meant one thing. It was time to settle a score. The large clock on the wall ticked. It sounded a resonant heartbeat in the tense stillness. Tick, tick. The doors swung open. Barack Obama stepped in, his demeanor calm and measured. It's the same slow, confident walk that once filled stadiums with applause now carried him across a room thick with unspoken tension. He wore his characteristic half-smile, not forced or fake, but politely composed, conveying, "I see exactly what's happening here, but it won't disturb me." Trump rose, extending his hand. "Barack," he said, a grin stretching across his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mr. President," Obama replied, shaking his hand firmly. His tone was respectful, yet his posture spoke volumes, clearly signaling that this was neither submission nor fear. For a brief moment, the two men held each other's gaze. The room fell, utterly silent once more. If tension could be bottled, that moment alone could have powered the entire White House. Staff members discreetly positioned themselves along the walls, avoiding eye contact, desperate to be invisible. No one dared to breathe too loudly. Trump gestured to the chair opposite him. "Have a seat," he offered. Obama nodded and settled in. Folder lay before him, meticulously organized with color-coded tabs marking topics like economic reforms, foreign policy, and education. He had arrived prepared to discuss the nation's future, but Trump had something entirely different in mind. The small talk didn't last long. "How's Michelle?" Trump asked casually. "She's doing well," Obama replied with his usual even tone. "Still inspiring people everywhere she goes." Trump nodded, leaning back. "That's good." A pause lingered, stretching just a little too long. Then came the smirk, and just like that, the real conversation began. "You know," Trump started, his voice dripping with forced charm, "I still get letters about your birth certificate. People really wonder about that, don't they?" The room froze. Every staffer's eyes darted to Obama. There it was, the move everyone had, both feared and anticipated. Trump had resurrected the very topic that had sparked his political rise. The false birther conspiracy, the baseless claim that Obama wasn't born in the United States. Obama didn't flinch, not once. He simply sat there, fingers interlaced, his expression unruffled. His eyes met Trump's, not with anger, but with quiet, absolute certainty. The silence stretched. Trump's grin widened as if expecting a reaction, but Obama simply leaned back, exhaled softly and said, "You're still on that?" That simple question delivered so calmly, cut sharper than any insult. Trump chuckled, feigning indifference. "Hey, I'm just saying what people are saying. You know how it is. I hear things." Obama nodded slowly, then reached into his folder. He slid a neatly folded document across the table. His birth certificate, the very one released years ago. "There it is again," he said lightly. "You can check it as many times as you need to. The paper hasn't changed." Trump's smile flickered. For a split second, a tiny, almost imperceptible crack in his facade. The silence returned. The ticking clock now seemed deafening. Tick, tick. Obama said nothing further. He just sat composed. The tension now clearly belonging to Trump. For the first time since the meeting began, Trump looked unsettled, straightened his tie, cleared his throat, and forced another grin. Well, he said, I guess that settles it then. Obama's voice remained calm. It's been settled for years, Donald. That tone, steady and certain, possessed a power all its own. It wasn't loud or aggressive, but it carried something far stronger. Control. Trump shifted in his chair. The energy in the room had undeniably shifted too. What was intended as a blatant show of dominance was beginning to look like something else entirely. A man desperately trying to win a game the other refused to play. For a moment, no one spoke. Outside the Oval Office, the wind rustled the American flag. Inside, the silence grew heavier. Obama glanced around the room at the paintings of past presidents, the stacks of briefing papers, the relentlessly ticking clock. Then he looked back at Trump and asked quietly, "So, are we ready to discuss the nation's future?" Trump hesitated, his confidence flickering, replaced by an unfamiliar uncertainty. He hadn't anticipated such calm resistance, hadn't expected Obama to command the room without ever raising his voice. That was Obama's unique strength. He didn't need to shout to be heard. His composure was his power. As the clock struck the next minute, everyone in that room knew one thing for certain. This wasn't merely a meeting anymore. This was a chess match between two profoundly different kinds of strength. And the next move was about to change everything. As Obama settled back into his chair, the atmosphere solidified into a palpable tension, thick and invisible, pressing down on everyone. Trump leaned back, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. His eyes locked on Obama like a predator studying its prey before the first strike. He smiled that slow, confident grin people had witnessed 1,000 times, the one that usually preceded something controversial. Bama recognized it too. Having seen that look on screens and debate stages for years, he knew something was coming. Trump made a brief attempt at small talk. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" said, glancing toward the window. Obama nodded politely. "It is." But Trump wasn't genuinely interested in the weather. His tone had a sharp edge as if he were warming up. Then, without warning, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His smile vanished. "So, tell me, Barack," he began, his voice suddenly serious. "Are we sure you were even born here?" The words struck the room like a thunderclap. Every sound seemed to vanish. Even the faint hum of the air conditioner disappeared behind those 7 words. An aide across the room stopped writing. Another looked down at the floor. Obama didn't move, not even a twitch. Trump pressed on, sensing the sudden silence. "Dude, no. A lot of people still wonder about that. I mean, there are questions. People come to me all the time and they say, 'Mr. President, are we really sure about Obama?'" He chuckled softly, pretending it was casual, but there was nothing casual about it. This was Trump's calculated offensive. He wasn't asking, was provoking. Years earlier, that very rumor, the false birther theory, had fueled Trump's ascent into political headlines, claiming Obama wasn't born in the United States and wasn't truly American. Even after it was proven false, even after documents were shown, some still repeated it. And Trump had been one of the loudest voices behind it. Now with Obama just feet away, he was throwing it directly in his face. Obama finally looked up, his expression unreadable, his eyes steady, calm, and piercing. "Still on that?" he asked softly. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Calm, controlled. Yet the sheer weight of those 3 words filled the room. Trump blinked, slightly caught, off guard by Obama's relaxed demeanor. He leaned back again, spreading his arms. "Hey, I'm just saying what people are saying. I hear things. You know, people talk. They always talk." Obama didn't respond immediately, took a quiet breath, and opened the folder he'd brought. Inside were papers, charts, and notes. But one document stood out. He pulled it out slowly, unfolded it, and placed it on the table between them. His birth certificate. It wasn't a showy gesture, wasn't dramatic. It was quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to raise its voice. "There it is," Obama said evenly, signed, sealed, verified. "You can read it again if you like." Trump stared at it for a few seconds, saying nothing, then let out a short laugh. "Well, I guess that clears it up, maybe." He said it playfully, but his voice carried an edge, a tiny crack of irritation. Obama smiled faintly. "There's no maybe, Donald. There never was." For a long moment, neither man spoke. Silence was deafening. Everyone in the room could feel the tension. Two men across from each other, both accustomed to being the center of attention, both determined not to back down. Trump picked up a pen and tapped it against the table. "And you know," he said slowly, "some presidents spent a lot of time talking. I like to get things done. Big difference." It was the next jab, a disguised insult. Obama's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Doing things," he replied quietly, "is easy. It's doing the right things. That's the hard part." The tone was polite, but the meaning hit like lightning. Trump stopped tapping the pen. The soft clatter as it hit the desk was the only sound in the room. For a few seconds, time felt frozen. Even the Secret Service agents outside the door seemed to sense the radiating tension. Trump broke the silence first. He said, forcing a laugh, "You always were good with words." Obama didn't answer. He simply looked at him calm, measured, steady. It wasn't arrogance. It was control. That's what unsettled Trump the most. He had expected fire, anger, maybe even a heated argument. Instead, he got calmness, confidence, a silence that proclaimed, "You can't shake me." It threw him off balance. Trump leaned forward again, trying to reclaim control. "You know, Barack, when I think about my presidency and yours, I realize we had very different styles. I liked to be bold. You liked speeches." Obama looked up. "Maybe," he said with a quiet shrug. "But words can build bridges or burn them. You choose which ones to build." Another silence, longer and heavier this time. Trump shifted in his seat, suddenly uncomfortable. It was clear now. His opening move had failed. The man he tried to humiliate hadn't taken the bait. Instead, Obama had turned the attack into a mirror, one Trump wasn't ready to look into. Deep down, Trump knew the meeting wasn't going to proceed as he planned. In that moment, Barack Obama wasn't just defending himself, he was reminding everyone in the room, and perhaps Trump himself, that power doesn't come from shouting. The loudest it comes from standing your ground without losing your calm. Battle of words wasn't over, but the first round unequivocally belonged to Obama. The air in the Oval Office now felt profoundly heavy. Trump had thrown his best punches, but none of them landed as he expected. Obama sat quietly, fingers resting on the table, his calm gaze unwavering. That relentless composure was beginning to get under Trump's skin. He cleared his throat and shifted, searching for another line, another jab to break the suffocating quiet. But before Trump could speak again, Obama leaned forward slightly. The move was small, almost casual, yet perfectly timed. "Donald," he said in a low, measured tone, "you and Ivanka have a son, right?" The question sliced through the quiet like a blade. Every eye in the room lifted at once. Even the aides near the wall looked up, visibly confused. Trump froze. For the first time since the meeting began, the confidence on his face flickered. "What's that supposed to mean?" he asked sharply. Obama didn't rush his answer, letting the silence work for him as only someone truly in control can. "What?" spoke slowly. "It means before you question my background, perhaps think about the kind of example you're setting for yours." Trump blinked, utterly caught off guard. "I'd come prepared to fight about documents and politics, not family." The shift threw him off balance. He forced a short laugh. "Barack, we're not here to talk about family. Stay professional." But Obama didn't smile. "Professional," he repeated softly. "That's interesting because professionalism starts with respect, something you keep forgetting." The words hung in the air. Obama's tone remained calm, but a quiet, undeniable authority resonated within it. Trump leaned back, trying to recover his rhythm. "You're twisting this around," he snapped. But Obama shook his head. "No, I'm just reminding you that leadership isn't about insults and conspiracies. It's about truth. And I've got the truth written down. Every word, every record, every fact." Trump narrowed his eyes. "You're threatening me now." Obama met his gaze. "I'm giving you a choice. You can keep twisting things or you can stop before this gets embarrassing for you." The room fell dead. Silent again. No one dared to move. A staffer near the door glanced at the floor, pretending not to hear. Trump's breathing grew heavier. He tried to laugh again, but it came out strained. "Embarrassing for me, please." Obama simply leaned back, hands clasped. You're the one bringing up rumors that died years ago. But if we're reopening old stories, I can bring some of yours too. Trump's face wrined. You wouldn't. Obama tilted his head slightly. Try me. For a moment, Trump seemed ready to explode. His voice rose, echoing through the room. You're out of line. You don't come into my office. But Obama's calm voice cut through his anger like a cool wave over fire. I'm in this office because I earned it once, and I'm here today because I was invited. That sentence landed harder than any shout could. Trump's words faltered. The anger drained from his voice, replaced by something quieter, almost defensive. You think you're better than me? He asked. Obama looked at him for a long moment, then said, No, I think I understand something you still don't. Trump frowned. And what's that supposed to be? That power isn't about proving you're right, Obama said. It's about knowing when to stop proving anything at all. The quiet that followed was almost painful. Even the ticking of the clock sounded louder, echoing through the Oval Office like footsteps in an empty hallway. Obama's words had shifted, the energy completely. He wasn't arguing anymore. He was teaching. And that made Trump look smaller. Trump reached for his glass of water, his hand trembling slightly as he lifted it, took a sip, trying to hide it. Obama continued his tone. Never rising. When you lead with anger, you lose control. When you lead with truth, you never have to raise your voice. Trump set the glass down with a sharp click. Don't lecture me, Barack. I'm not, Obama said. I'm reminding you. Then, for the first time, he leaned back with a hint of a smile. Not smug, but sure. Remember, Donald, he said quietly, you're not the only one who keeps records. I have documents too. I ever need to prove a point, I won't need rumors or noise. I'll use facts, and they'll speak louder than any tweet or headline. The last word landed heavy. Trump's jaw tightened. He didn't like being warned, especially not like this. But what could he say? Every time he tried to twist the moment, Obama brought it back to calm truth. Every insult bounced off him like rain on glass. It was clear now. Trump had wanted a fight. Obama had given him something worse, a mirror. And what Trump saw in that mirror wasn't strength. It was insecurity, pride, and the fear that someone else could steal the spotlight with nothing more than composure. A silence lingered again, stretching into seconds that felt like minutes. Finally, Trump looked away, pretending to glance at a stack of folders on his desk. He mumbled something about getting back to real business, but his voice had lost its fire. Obama nodded politely. Sure, he said. Let's talk about real business, the kind that helps the country, not egos. Trump didn't respond. He only straightened his papers, eyes fixed anywhere but on the man sitting across from him. In that moment, the power in the room shifted completely. Obama hadn't needed to win with numbers or arguments or titles. He had won by staying calm while the other man fell apart. That was the real counterattack. Not shouting, not threats, just quiet control, the kind that makes everyone else realize who's truly in charge. The battle wasn't over, but the tide had undeniably turned. Trump had started the meeting thinking he could humiliate Barack Obama. Instead, he was the one now struggling to keep his composure. As the clock ticked on, the air in the room spoke the truth before anyone said a word. Round 2 belonged to Obama. The heavy door of the Oval Office closed with a soft click, a sound that echoed through the White House like a distant bell. For a moment, no one moved. The aides along the wall exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to follow, speak, or simply disappear. Trump remained frozen. Behind his desk, his hands still halfway extended, fingers slowly curling back into a fist. His face was flushed, his breathing uneven, but his eyes told a different story. Well, for the first time that day, there was no anger behind them. There was confusion, and perhaps deep down, something that looked a lot like doubt. He lowered himself back into the chair, staring at the desk for a long moment. The room, which had once felt like his personal stage, now felt smaller, quieter, as if Obama's calm presence had somehow drained all the noise from it. A single sentence lingered in the air like smoke. The truth doesn't need permission to exist. Trump looked toward the window where the late afternoon sun had begun to fade. Outside, the American flag fluttered in the wind. For a split second he looked almost reflective. Almost. Then his expression hardened again. "Get me my schedule," he muttered to his aide. But even as he spoke, his voice lacked its usual bite. The meeting intended to humiliate Barack Obama had ended in silence. That silence said everything. Meanwhile, down the hall, Obama walked with steady steps, each one echoing softly against the polished floor. Secret Service agents maintained a respectful distance behind him, but no one spoke. He didn't look angry, nor did he look smug. He looked tired, perhaps, but peaceful, like a man who had done what needed to be done and felt no need to say another word about it. As he reached the main corridor, a staffer waiting by the door nervously asked, "Sir, are you okay?" Obama smiled faintly. "I'm fine," he said, "but I hope the country will be too." Those words carried a quiet weight, the kind of line that lingers long after you hear it. He stepped outside into the evening air. The sky was painted in gold and orange, a light that felt almost symbolic. It was peaceful in a way the White House hadn't been just minutes earlier. Obama paused for a second, looking up at the flag above him. He didn't say anything, but his expression conveyed it all. Pride, patience, and a kind of sadness that only comes from loving something enough to be disappointed by it. He knew the conversation inside that office wasn't just about him, was about truth, about leadership, about what happens when power forgets its purpose. He took a deep breath, and for a brief moment could almost imagine what was running through his mind, how leadership had changed, how politics had turned into performance, how truths, simple, honest truth, had become something people now argued over. He knew people would hear about that meeting one way or another. Maybe some would twist it, maybe some would deny it happened, but that didn't matter to him because the truth doesn't depend on who believes it. It's just as later that evening in a quiet interview setting, Obama was asked about leadership. Without any mention of the meeting, he smiled that calm, knowing smile and said, "Leadership isn't about being the loudest in the room. It's about being the one who listens when no one else wants to." The interviewer nodded slowly, waiting as Obama continued. "It's easy to throw insults," he said softly. "It's easy to spread rumors, but it takes strength to stay calm when others lose control. Real strength doesn't come from shouting, it comes from standing on truth, especially when it's hard." He leaned back, his tone reflective, almost like a teacher passing down a lesson. "When I was in office, I made mistakes. I own them because that's what the job demands. Honesty, even when it's uncomfortable." Then after a short pause, he added, "Integrity isn't about how you act when the cameras are on. It's about who you are when no one's watching." Those words hung in the air. Simple, clear, powerful. And somewhere in that truth was the heart of the moment that had unfolded earlier that day. Obama didn't win by shouting. He didn't need to. He had let truth do the talking. It had spoken louder than anything else could. As the night settled over Washington, the lights in the White House glowed softly against the dark sky. Inside, Trump's team was already trying to move past what had happened, pretending it had been just another meeting. But those who had been in the room that day would remember it differently. They'd remember the silence after Obama's words. They'd remember the way Trump's hand hung in the air unanswered. And they'd remember the calm that followed, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard, 'cause that's what truth does. It doesn't roar. It resonates. In his private reflection later that night, Obama was said to have written a single sentence in his notebook. It read, "Power fades, truth doesn't." That's what he had tried to show, not just to Trump, but to anyone watching. That leadership isn't about humiliation or pride. It's about humility. It's about standing your ground without lowering yourself. And that's how he left the White House that evening without needing applause, cameras, or headlines. He had come face to face with noise and answered it with quiet strength. In the end, that's what made his comeback unforgettable. Not because he shouted louder, but because he stood taller. As the story closes, one question remains. What does leadership really mean to you? Is it power, popularity, control, or is it honesty even when no one's watching? Because as Obama showed that day in the White House, truth doesn't need to fight, it just needs to stand.